Here are the instructions and a video on how to make the wooden float plane. You're going to need these instructions. You can get those from me. And one of the first steps you'll have to do is cut out these outlines, these templates. These are going to get glued onto pieces of wood. You'll notice here it tells you how thick the material needs to be, 1.5 inches, 1/4 inch for the wing. Stabilizer 1/4 inch, floats for 3/4 inch. The instructions are here and the steps that you'll need to follow, so follow along on those. One of the first steps is to put on the appropriate thickness of wood. You see here the body is 1.5 inches and this is 1.5 inch material. I have the material pre-made for you. You just have to get the correct one, so find me to get the right stuff. You put tape down, masking tape, down on the piece of wood, and then the template gets glued onto the masking tape. That helps later. Once you cut this all out with the scroll saw, you're going to peel the tape off and you'll be left with just the outline. So I've got my pieces cut out here and I'm ready to put them on my taped pieces of wood, and I'm going to glue them on with some spray adhesive. Now put a backer down. You can see that I have this plastic bag down. You can use paper or anything, just don't do it right on top of a workbench because that will make it sticky. So here's the spray adhesive, and I'm just going to do a light coat on each piece of wood and glue down my templates. Keep in mind when you're doing this, you really don't need a lot of this glue. It's just a quick spritz across there, enough to stick it down. If you put too much on, you're going to have a mess. Okay, now it's time to cut them out on the scroll saws. Now if you don't know how to use a scroll saw, make sure you ask how to use it. And one thing you will have to do is copy down these safety sheets, or this safety sheet, before you use it and hand that in. So you're going to cut them out. Oh, that one doesn't work. Let's go to this one. There we go. Once you have your pieces out, cut out, you can sand them down. Now you'll notice when I was cutting them, I kept it a little ways away from the line, and that's on purpose. Now I'm able to sand it down right to my line. I did go over my line on one spot here when I did the wing. Just take your time and make sure you don't go over your line, because it's easy now to come to the sander and sand it down to your line. For these hard to reach areas, like in here where you can't get against with the sander, you'll have to use the disc sander here on the side and get in like this carefully to sand into the corner. This will probably have to get cleaned up as well with a chisel once that's done. While you're here at the sander, it's a good time to fit the stabilizer into the slot at the back. Now it's a little bit thicker than the slot, and that has to get sanded down. However, holding it with your fingers like this is a little risky, and it's probably best to be avoided. A simple way to avoid that is to clamp your piece into a clamp like this, and now I can use my hands on the clamp instead of using my fingers so close to the belt. Sand it carefully and test the fit to see when it fits now. Here you can see I didn't sand very long, and my piece fits nicely into that slot. Hard to do with one hand, but now I know I'm going to have a good fit with my stabilizer. Once you have the stabilizer fitting nicely, you don't have to do that now either. You'll notice if you look at this fuselage that it looks a little boxy. It's the same thickness throughout. A real airplane doesn't have that. It's narrower at the front, gets wider, and then narrows down towards the tail. We're going to need to turn to our third page and cut out this shape right here, tail and nose. This is the template we're going to use. We are going to glue it on the bottom of our airplane. So we're going to put tape down the same as we did before. We're going to glue this cutout on the bottom and cut that out to give the shape so the fuselage doesn't look so boxy. Alright, I've got the tape down on the bottom of the plane and I have the template glued to the bottom. I have it glued onto the tape and I'm ready to cut it out on the scroll saw. Okay, we've got that cut out and now you can see it does take on a bit more of an airplane look. And the only thing left is now to get rid of the saw marks by sanding it down. It may be best to sand it up like this so you can get it right to the line, but you could also sand it on the side. The only difference here is that you're going to end up with sanding marks that go across the grain as opposed to along the grain. So I'm going to sand it. So I've got it sanded down now, and it looks pretty good all around. Just inspect it and make sure there's no places that need sanding more. I'm going to test and see that my wing fits, and it does. Fits nicely. What I'm going to do now is I may put the holes in here, because we're going to have holes in there so that the dowels are going to fit into there. Now it has to be drilled at an angle at 45 degrees, so setting that up can be tricky. We're going to do that on the drill press, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so the one drill press that I usually use for this is drill press number 3. We're going to need this clamp, this vise that can be clamped down to the bed of the drill press, and we're going to need this special clamp that I've made that has this little back on it. It's a wooden hand screw clamp. It's been shaved down here to fit what we need, so you're going to find that. And you're also going to need to change the bit. Right here we have a big Forstner bit. We're going to have to change that so that we have a 3/8 brad point bit. So we're going to need to find that, and we have one over here. It's this one here. And it looks like it's been abused a little bit because it's turned a little blue. Hopefully it still cuts fine. Alright, I'm going to use the key up here to put that into the drill press, and then we'll be good to go. Change the drill bit. What you have to do is stick the key into the hole on the side here. Whoops. Into the hole on the side, and you're going to loosen it by spinning to the left. Now, the problem is I don't want this to fall out, and I'm holding my phone with one hand. Trying to do this one-handed is not easy. So there, I just took the bit out. You want to make sure this doesn't drop on the metal, because you're going to dull the tip, which is also very sharp. So then we put the other bit in, and let's see if I can do this one-handed. You should try one-handed too, because it's not easy, that's for sure. Now we're going to be tightening it. I'm going to put the phone down for this. So you just tighten it back in. So we're going to be drilling the holes in the very corner of our airplane here, but we have to know exactly where. The way to find out is you measure from the nose here, and you're going to measure back, I believe it's 2 inches and 4 inches, but I'm going to double check that. It says on our paper, so you can go to the paper and look. On the last page, it shows you that. Okay, no, I was wrong. So here is your fuselage, and you're going to measure back 1.5 inches and 3.5 inches, and those marks are going to go on the corners here. So you're going to measure from the front 1 1/2, 3.5, and make a mark right on the very corner with a pencil. The 2 and the 4 come later when we're drilling out the floats, and that's a separate procedure. There are my marks at 1.5 and 3.5, right on the corners, bottom of my fuselage, measured from the front. All right, now I'm going to show you how to mount this into the drill press here. We already showed you how to change the bit. So what we need to do is hold this at 45 degrees so that we're able to drill in there. Now it's very awkward to do that since this is already round. It's hard to hold that. So what we are going to have to do is mount this clamp at 45 degrees so that we can then clamp this into it. Now it's too high, so I'm going to adjust it lower. To do that, I'm going to hang onto the table, loosen the lever here at the back, right there, and we're going to lower that down just to get it out of the way. Now what I'm going to do now is, let's see, which way should I do this? Let's go like this. I'm going to put this in, and 45 degrees is, you can measure it, it is half of 90 degrees, and I'm going to just look at it for now. Now, what this does is I've got this clamped in here. I'm able to now use this lever, and you'll notice how I have this cutout down inside of the jaws here, so that when you're squeezing, it's not putting pressure on the top of the windshield or here and damaging that. So now I've got it held at 45 degrees, however, it's still not near the drill bit. So what I'll have to do now is actually swing this to the side so that I can reach that point. Now what I want to do here is get it lined up exactly on the point where I want it. Right there. And now I want to set how deep I'm going to drill it. This distance right here, you can see, that tells me how far this drill is going to go in. If I start drilling now, I'm going to drill right all the way through my airplane. So I'm going to change that, and I do that by lifting this little disc at the top, spinning down. I want to be about 1/2 of an inch right there. You can measure it, get a measuring tape out if you want. 1/2 of an inch is that far. So now what we have to do is stabilize this. To do that, we are going to use a clamp, a C-clamp, and you're going to tighten it down right here on this spot. Okay, now I can look, and yeah, it's in the spot I want. Actually, I'm going to move it slightly right there, make sure it's nice and snug in there, and I'm ready to drill. No, I'm not. Power's not on. So I'm going to plug it in. And I'm going to drill it. So you can see that I've drilled out the 2 holes on one side. I'm going to flip the plane fuselage around to get the other side. Something to keep in mind is that when you move holes, so I just finished drilling this one, and to get to this one, I don't need to loosen this clamp at all. I'm loosening these clamps here and sliding the whole vise around until I get it lined up, and then clamp it down again. And there we go. Once you have the fuselage drilled with the holes, then it's time to drill the floats. The sizes are from the front 2 inches and 4 inches. So you're going to measure those from the front. The key thing to keep in mind is that these floats go on opposite sides of the plane, so the holes have to be drilled on the inside corners. So a common mistake is that people will drill them both on the left or the right sides, and you'll have the floats facing the wrong way, so you have to drill them on the right side on one and the left side on the other. Okay, I've got them marked out here now. 2 inches and 4 inches from the front and on the inside corners here. Now we're going to use drill press number 1 to do this operation, and it's set up with this sled here, and I always keep in the back a little jig that I use to help hold the float in place. So the way it works is you will set this up in this little cutout and using the plunger holding it in to drill out those holes. Alright, so I've got my pieces marked out. I'm going on drill press number 1 here. I've got a 3/8 inch bit, and I'm going to be setting this so that it is held in here while I drill. Now you can see that this is not plunging in, so I'm going to spin this back right here until it pops over nice. There we go, that's pretty nice, maybe a little bit less. And you can see that I have it plunging around where the first hole is to be drilled. And yes, it's not lined up. So that's where we have to release these clamps here. I'm going to move it until the point of the bit is right on the corner there, and then I'm going to drill it. Line it up. Now notice I didn't release the clamp. That's intentional. You don't want to release this because it's being held in there right now where you want it. And just hold it down with your hand. And that's one pontoon done. Then you do the same thing to the other one. So ideally you want these holes to be right centered over the corner of the pontoon. You'll notice on this one, my front hole here got a little bit out of whack and it's not quite centered, which will make my airplane look a little funny. So I could either make a new one or carry on. I'm going to carry on and deal with it. Once you've got those drilled, then you're going to take some 3/8 of an inch dowel, cut 4 pieces, 2 inches long. Okay, so here are my 4 dowels I cut. So as you can figure out, they go into these holes, and then the pontoons stick onto those, and that's what makes the airplane look like an airplane. You should have everything you need now to assemble it, more or less, but I would hesitate to do that yet because there are some shaping we're going to do. We want to round over the edges of the wings, and we want to sand out the marks from the saw. You can see them if you hold it in the right light, and you want to sand all that out and make it look as nice as possible, rounding over the edges. Same as on here, you want to round the edges here, make them more slipstream, more look like an airplane. One of the last steps we're going to do is make the propeller, and that involves cutting out this propeller outline and shaping the propeller like it's shown in the video. So same idea, I've got some masking tape on this birch plywood, and I've got my spray adhesive on it. Got my propeller here, I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to cut it out with the scroll saw. Once you've got your propeller cut out, you can find a 1/8 inch drill bit and put it in a drill, of course, and you're going to drill a hole right through the center where that mark is. We're going to make the propeller look a little more like a propeller now. What we're going to do is use the corner of the disc sander. We're just going to hold the propeller at a slight angle, and we're going to sand a propeller shape on the front of every blade. Looks a little more like a propeller now. And that's that. Take some hand sandpaper now and just sand the edges so they're nice and round, not so sharp from the saw. Okay, for this next step you're going to need to get a nail with its head cut off that is sitting in the top corner of this magnetic strip. You're going to put that into a drill. So just like this, you're actually going to use this as a drill bit, and we're going to get a piece of 1/2 inch dowel. Now this is different from what we did for the outriggers. That's 3/8 dowel, and this is 1/2 inch dowel. What we're going to do is to drill a hole right in the very center. And it's really important you follow this all the way through, because if you do this in the wrong order, it can get very difficult. Now take a file, and we're going to shape a cone. This is going to be the cone that is on our that holds our propeller in. It'll make sense in a minute. Okay, I've got the cone made. You can see the hole that is drilled in the end. And now what we're going to do is cut this off. So I'm going to cut it off at where the cone ends there. Hopefully you still have the drill bit that has the nail, rather, not a drill bit, because we need to drill a hole with this nail right in the end, in the center of our fuselage. You can get a small 3D 1 1/4 finishing nail from this yellow tub that's here on next to the drills. And what we do with that nail is, it is going to be the thing that holds our propeller on. So we're going to stick it through the cone, the small cone that we made. Stick the nail through there. Careful not to poke your fingers. Push that through. Okay, like this. And then you're going to put that into your propeller and stick that down into the top of your well, this is actually doesn't look that great, into your fuselage. So that's going to make your propeller. That's how the propeller stays on. So take a close look at that, and that's how you make it. Before you do your final assembly, once you have all your parts made, be sure you spend some time sanding. Start with a rough grit like an 80. And you're going to be sanding with the grain, so that's in the direction, the long grain. So you want to avoid sanding across, because that will introduce scratches that are hard to remove. So spend some time rounding over the edges, smoothing everything, making it slightly rounded on all the corners. Start with an 80 grit, and then you'll move to a 120. And then finally a 220 to finish it off. Once all your pieces are nicely sanded with 80 and finishing off with a 220 grit, then you're going to, there's a lot of dust on it. You're going to want to get that off of there, use the blower, blow the dust off. We're almost ready to assemble, but what we're going to do is prepare the ends of our dowels. Instead of having a square sharp cut, we're going to sand them just so they're a little bit rounded and chamfered on the end. Not much, just enough to make it so they slide into the hole a little better. It makes it easier gluing. If you just twist the dowel a little bit, then you'll get just a slight round on the end. Hold the dowel at an angle and just twist it in a circle, and you'll get that rounded a little bit, and it'll pop into the hole a lot better. All right. Once you have your pieces blown off and you've cleaned your hands, you got a clean workspace. Make sure there's no dust and dirt here. Actually, there is here, which is too bad. Blow it off, get it cleaned up. You want to, before you start stuffing glue everywhere, you want to do a dry fit. Make sure everything actually fits properly. So I'm going to assemble it all, just without any glue at all, to see how it fits. Okay, so I've done a dry fit. My pieces are just sitting on there. The wing is actually a little floppy now that I've sanded it a bit more than I needed to. I'm just going to live with that. I'm going to put it to the front and have it be at the front. You're wanting to look and see how the pontoons look, and see if there's any changes that need to be made. I'm not exactly happy with it. It looks a little bit off. Looks like this one is kinked down a little bit, but at the end of the day, the airplane sits reasonably well. From the top, it looks a little bit out of whack. Maybe this one could be shortened a little bit, this back pontoon, and maybe I'll just do that quickly while I don't have any glue on. I'm going to shorten this one just about 1 millimeter. Okay, I've got the dry fit done. I'm happy with how these look and how they sit, so I'm going to take it apart again. We're going to begin to glue. I'll probably start with the pontoons. Now I want to be careful. I don't want to use too much glue because it's very hard to clean glue up out of these spaces, so I'm going to carefully put the glue around the outside edge right inside there. I don't want a lot gooping out because it's very hard to clean. Now I'm going to stick the pontoon or the thing in and spin it around. I'll spread the glue and then I let it sit, and do the same on the back, and I'm going to do the same on all the other ones. Okay, these are glued in. I'm taking a look for any spots where there might be glue oozing out on the bottoms. Here's a little spot right there. I'm just going to clean that up. You really want to be careful not to have glue smeared all over because it seals the surface, and if you want to stain this, it'll be hard to stain. I'm going to glue in the other pieces now. Take the time, you got to line it up. Take any glue off. Get it lined up exactly where you want it. If you do get a bit of glue blobbing out, be sure you get a paper towel with a little bit of water on it, just damp slightly, and wipe that off. That's the best way to get that off the surface. And I have a little bit right in there that I'm going to wipe out. Try to get it so it doesn't soak into the wood in case you do decide to stain it. Staining is where you put a color on the wood. Any glue blobs you want to wipe off. Okay, now take it. Now that's that. Now when I put on the wing, I held it there for about 1 minute, and now I'm just going to let it sit. Next step will be doing any wood burning design on there you want, and then we'll be applying the finish. Once you've got that all sanded and your plane is all smooth and assembled, and you've got the wood burning done on there that you want to do, you can design it however you want. Then it's time to put a finish on here, and that means spraying a coating on here that will protect it from stains and discoloration over time. So when I mean a spray gun, you're going to have to ask me for it. It's a little gun like this that hooks up, has finish in the bottom, hooks up to a compressor, and you pull the trigger and it sprays finish out. Now it's easy to overdo it with this, and if you spray and sit and hold in one spot for a long time, you're going to overdo it. So the first thing you'll do is you'll spray the bottom. Make sure it's all clean, and you're just going to mist and spray the bottom of your plane, the hard to reach areas. You don't want to have it so there's drips forming. And to hang it up, you can hang it on this little hook here that's on this paint can. Now, just so you know, we're at the front of the classroom beside the blue cabinets. This is the spray booth. There's air moving up this vent, so you have to spray it up there. So now once you've done the bottom of it, you can look, and it won't be like glossy yet. It takes a little bit of time for that to happen. What this does is seals it. Now it looks like I could do a little more down here. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the top. I'm making sure to put it on these triangles so that it doesn't stick to the floor or to the table. So now I can carefully spray everywhere, and this is a water-based spray that is not harmful. So we are looking to make sure we get it coated everywhere. Once you've done that once, you let it dry, probably at least till the next day, or it could be 2 hours. You sand it gently with 220 again, and then you repeat the spraying. Maybe do this 3 or 4 times. Make sure you also spray your propeller while you have it here. After you're done spraying, you want to take a close look at the tip here and clean any residue of the finish that's left on there. Wipe it with a paper towel, a damp paper towel or something. Here's a little bit of residue here. We're going to clean that up so it doesn't coat up and become clogged. Once you've sprayed the airplane once, you come back once it's dry, usually a couple of hours, and you're going to sand it again with 220 grit sandpaper. So you get the sandpaper, you look on the back, you find the 220. Hard to see there, but this is 220 grit, and you sand the whole thing. What that does is gets rid of those little rough spots that form. When the finish hardens on there, it'll sometimes make wood fibers stick up, and they harden like that, and it becomes rough. You have to sand that down again, spray it off with air, and then you put another finish on it. Spritz it with that gun and do the same process. You're going to do that maybe at least two, maybe 3, 4 times. 4 times is probably best. And once you have that done, then you take your propeller out, stick your propeller in, and then, yeah, can't do this one-handed. Then you're done your airplane. Once it's all finished, then you're going to mark it and take it home and happy flying.